Hey everyone. Uh, 1 second. Let me. Hey Brent. Hi John. Oh man, Florida, 54 degrees, huh? Actually, I might get up close to you today at about 50 degrees. Right now it's about 35, but okay. So I've tried to start on time today, but now I got all kinds of things going on here with my coffee. Anyway, hi. Good morning, Eddie. Good morning, Dan. Thanks for everyone that's here. Every Sunday morning. I think this will be my regular time, and then I'll try and throw in some other ones during the week if I get a chance. Just the schedule's been kind of crazy for me this week with just my normal work, doing some real estate photography and stuff. And then, of course, the holidays and things. And I've been going out doing a lot of shooting with my 75 to 300 this week. Been struggling with that a little bit. Because I bought that lens about 2 years ago, and I got great images then, but I'm struggling this year to get some decent images out of it. Hi from Brazil. Hi, John. Hey, John. Oh, my goodness. It's so late for you. I appreciate you staying up this late. I know. Man, 24 and snowing, huh, Brent? That's awesome. I mean, if it's going to be cold, it might as well snow, right? Um, oh, hi, Jose. Wow, 10 Celsius. Nice. I mean, I'm trying to think that's probably in the 50 or 60 degree range. Just trying to get a feel for metric and what do they call it? English system? I don't know. I wish we would just all be on metric personally, and then I can get used to it. I'm trying to use metric more in my thinking in terms of distance and temperatures and weights. But hey, Mitchell, good morning. So yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just still warming up a little bit myself here. But I spent a lot of time this week. Hi, SJ. Trying to improve my stream in terms of the image quality, because I got a message from someone in my last stream, or a comment, that the video quality has been terrible in all my streams. And I understand clearly in the beginning, because I was using a stupid webcam from like 1999. But right now I'm using the M5 Mark II with, and I put all kinds of lighting up today too. So hopefully it's better. And I also increased the bit rate of the live stream, etc. So hopefully the quality is better today. I really need to get. I'm supposed to get some new lights in from a company to review, which I haven't gotten yet. I don't know what the holdup is. I'm also supposed to be getting in a nice little lens. I think I'm starting to see some reviews for it. It's one of these cinema lenses. It's like a 56 millimeter f something. I don't know. It's supposed to be really good. But that hasn't come in yet either. Yeah, the variable aperture. So let me talk about the 75, the 75 to 300. I didn't prepare any images or anything for you guys to look at, but I'm sure you've seen a lot of great images from this lens. And generally, what I'm finding is, not having really used it in about 2 years, is that you obviously need a lot of light. So good light, and you need to fill the frame as much as you can with the subject. And the further away the object is from the subject, or from the lens, just the messier it gets. And I think that's part of the optics, not so much because of the distance of the subject. Obviously, you have to crop in. But I'm just not getting the same kind of sharp images. The last couple of photo walks that I did have a few shots with the 75 to 300 lens in there, and Oh, hi Sam, was it you that left a comment last time about the image quality? I'm really trying. Like I said, I think it has a lot to do with lighting and stuff. But Hi Robert. Um, but anyway, yeah, on the 75 to 300, the when the subject is so far away, I think partially it's the optics. It's just not the optics just aren't good enough to capture, to be able to crop in on subjects when they're too far away. So unless the object is filling, I'd say at least half of the frame, maybe at least a third of the frame. It's going to be tough to get a clean image out of it. But that being said, you will get the shot, if you have enough light. But I'm going to keep going out. It's harder in the wintertime because it gets dark so fast and it's cloudy, 5 out of 7 days of the week now for me to get it out. So I really picked a bad time to try to showcase that lens. um, but I mean, when I looked at my images from 2 years ago, that they were really good. So I'm thinking it's just the lower lighting I have to deal with, and just dealing with the new autofocus system also with the M5 and the M1. I never used that lens on my EM1 or EM5 that I recall. And I've been trying to do some fast tracking of my dog running and things. So I still have a long way to go in terms of practicing and doing birds and flights and things. No, I haven't tried Hi, Jose. I haven't tried DxO Photolab. And Yeah, the best results from DxO. Yeah, I always try to. I'm sorry. Yeah, I always try to get the image best I can in camera because those other processing softwares, um, really, it's a matter of who does the best raw processing. Like, do you get a really good image from just the raw image from the raw file without doing any processing yet? And I've only tried Capture One, Lightroom, and of course Olympus Workspace. And I think Capture One, to some extent, of those three, gave me the best image, straight out of camera, raw, without processing. Now it did have some default sharpening and things applied, but it gave me the best image, I think. But unfortunately, I have to stick with Lightroom, which is, I'd say, about 95% there near Capture One, because it has Photoshop, the package, right? For here, it's $10 a month, and I cannot do my pro work without the Photoshop, unfortunately. And I gave some images to my Capture One buddy. He has a channel for Capture One, and he wasn't able to duplicate what I was able to do in Photoshop, even with all his expertise. So that's kind of kept Capture One, and I think DxO would have the same issue for me, not being able to layer photos and blend them in different ways, like darken mode or screen mode, things that I need to do professionally. And then Orshanti was asking which lens. I was talking about the 75 to 300 lens. Um, oh, you thought C1? Yeah, slightly behind. Yeah, if you're doing single images, I mean, it's just a matter of being able to try all the different ones and find the one that works best for you. I don't think it was you, Jose. Someone sent me images from like 3 or 4 different softwares of the same thing. And yeah, DxO Mark seemed to do the best. And his purpose was to see how much noise reduction, or who did the best noise reduction. And DxO seemed to do the best job for noise reduction of the images that he sent me. But again, I try to shoot without, at the lowest ISO possible. And if there's noise in the image, it's usually not something I do professionally. Um, oh, SJ, man, the 40 to 150. I don't know who it was on Instagram that tagged me in one of his images, but he used this 40 to 150 with the 2x teleconverter, and it was awesome. Now, I didn't get a feel for how much he cropped in on that image because it's it's an Instagram. But what I did see was incredible, and I've been shopping the 40 to 150, used on eBay for about 800 bucks, and that seems like a killer deal. My local camera store has one, but they want 1150 for it for a used one, and it's in good shape, but I don't know if I can get it for 800. Why not? It's just I'm always a little leery of all the scams that go on eBay. And then I have all the porch pirates here locally in my neighborhood. That's always stealing stuff, so I have to be here when it comes. But oh, hey Brent, yeah, that was an awesome picture of that bird. I was one of those birds that catch fish in the water, kind of like a kingfisher or a blue herring. It looked like a herring or some breed somewhere along that. But that was an awesome picture. Um, hey Jack, how are you? Um, but anyhow, like I said, I'm here to answer any questions, talk about anything, with Olympus cameras, lenses, workspace, or just photography in general. So, Tom has a question here. What are your thoughts on using the standard 43rd lenses with the M10 Mark II and adapter? It's not ideal. The standard 4/3 lenses, like for the old E5 systems, E510, E500s, were really designed, I think, with phase detect in mind for focusing. And you'll have much better results with the original EM1 Mark 1 or the Mark II, and you'll get much better autofocusing with the adapter. Now, if you don't care about autofocusing, if you're just doing single point, still life and things, you'll probably be okay. But generally speaking, most people prefer the using the EM1 with the phase detect on the chip, and it was designed specifically to work with the 4/3 lenses because that was kind of the transition period, right, from the E500s to the Micro Four Thirds. Oh, hey Leon, glad you joined in. I've been working on that. I know you've been asking me about the 75 to 300. I'm working on it. It's just tough in the wintertime to get enough light. If you saw my last short trek with the where I was just having a bad day, I could not get any images out of that 75 to 300 that were worth showing. Um, Compared to ones I've taken 2 years ago with this lens. I've had this lens a couple years, but I haven't used it since I bought it that much. Um, oh, okay. Juha has a question. What is extended ISO? It's about ISO 100. What is the point about that, and should I use it? Well, the okay, so there's the native ISO 200 for our Olympus cameras. And anything above or beyond that, even ISO 400 or ISO 100, 160, the extended ISO below 200 kind of varies between the cameras. I noticed on my EM10 Mark II, for example, sometimes I'd get ISO 160 or ISO 180. On my EM1s, it'll go all the way down to 64, so that it seems to be kind of a little bit more random below 200 what low ISO is, except on newer EM1s or the newer cameras. But generally, it's taking the image from the sensor at ISO 200 and then amplifying or reducing the gain from that image to reflect what the ISO would be at that lower ISO. So for example, if you're at ISO 200, you take a shot at ISO, I'm sorry, if you take a picture in ISO low, and let's say that turns out to be ISO 100, the camera actually takes the image at ISO 200, then reduces the camera in software in the camera so it reflects an ISO 100 exposure. So it's an artificial change in the exposure in terms of ISO. Now that being said, what's the difference between, say, changing the ISO in camera versus just changing the exposure in software. Because I think it was a few months ago, Tony Northrup was saying that ISO's just a artificial number, that all cameras shoot at one ISO, and then it's no different than just doing it in software like in Lightroom or something. And to some extent that's true, but it's much better to shoot at the proper ISO in camera, because the camera is reading directly from the sensor, and then it's processing the exposure based on the ISO you want to go for. And it recognizes the noise floor that you might have in the sensor. Sometimes they call it shot noise, etc. But it's able to work with that directly before creating the raw image. Versus when you get into Lightroom, it takes the raw image that's already been processed by the camera, and then it amplifies whatever noise it finds there. So you're cutting out sort of a middleman when you do it in camera. So it's always better to do it in camera. But yeah, I think going low ISO is no big deal. In terms of extended ISO, you'll get your results will be fine. So that's kind of a long answer to really a short question. How often do I clean my sensor? Actually, in the 3+ years I've been using Olympus, I've never cleaned the sensor other than just blowing it with a blower sometimes. I'm just amazed at how I never find any dust on the sensor, as exposed as it is every time I change lenses. Now, that being said, I think it does need to be done, because even though there's no dust on the sensor per se, there's a lot of things in the air, even the plastics in the camera, they particulate at a whatever that rate is, and they attach themselves to the sensor in a way that dust does not. That's a little bit more permanent and would require cleaning the sensor. And most people recommend once a year. I guess the best example I can give you is if you think about the windows in your car, like the windshield, and you have to wipe that down time to time. There's sort of a film on the glass, and that's caused from the plastics in your car particulating. I don't know the exact scientific term, but it gets onto the windshield, and you have to clean it time to time. It's not just dust and dirt that attract onto the glass, and your sensor's really no different. Have I used the Panasonic Leica 8-18? I have not. Now, I think Salanto blog did a review on that lens, and he compared it to the new Panasonic 10-25. So you may want to check out his channel, Salanto blog, and look at the videos that he did on that lens. But I haven't used it because it's a focal length I kind of have covered with my lenses already. So I just don't have a need for that, especially at f2.8. It just wouldn't cut it for me. I mean, it seems like a fine lens, but I don't know anything about it. Hey, Noe, how are you doing? Wow, thanks for joining in. I thought I saw a video of yours where you said you were going to do live streams on Sunday mornings. But I'm glad you're here. Hey, Rod, how are you? Oh, good night. Good night, Rod. You just come in and say good night. All right. Juha, you're welcome. Hopefully that helped. Hi, Mr. Digger. Hi, John. How are you? It's always good to see you, John. John he's been a long time viewer on my channel, and he's always very kind in his comments and things when he writes in there. Hi, Eddie, as all of you are. I really appreciate that. Best lens for newborn shots on the EM10 Mark II. Wow, I would say the 25mm f1.8 or the 45 f1.8 if you got a little more room. Either one of those lenses, they're relatively, inexpensive, and they give you terrific results. I'd probably go with the 45 personally. I've done some awesome shots with that. And another thing you might try is the portrait mode uh, profile on our cameras. I thought it did a really good job. I did a portrait shoot, a week or two ago, and I was really impressed with the portrait mode. It really made the skin tones look really nice. So just try that. I mean, always shoot in RAW if you're into RAW processing, but try the portrait mode. You might like it. Um, Hi Barry, Florida. Man, I need to get down to Florida sometime this winter. Um, oh, hey Solanto. Yeah, it's. I didn't say anything bad about the lens. I just said I didn't use it. But yeah, the 8-18. Thanks for coming in. I told him to go see your video on that. I watched it. I can't remember what you said about it anymore. I watched it about a week ago. Your 8-18 video, and then when you compared the 8-18 to the 10-25, when I just saw the sizes of those lenses, I just decided, it wasn't for me. And being at f2.8, because I have this Olympus fisheye f1.8 that I use now for all of my pro work, and it's totally replaced my other lens. Here. This is my 7-14 Panasonic lens, which I'm thinking about trading in now because I really don't use it anymore since getting the 8mm fisheye. Okay, let's see. Let me catch up here. Hi, Chuck. Good morning. Thanks for coming in. Oh, thanks, Valdez, for the feedback on the 40, because I don't really do infant photography, but I would think the 45 would be a good selection. Thanks for adding to that. Oh, thanks, Wally. I'm glad to do it. The question is, Workspace or Lightroom, which do I prefer? I would say, my pro work is in real estate, so I do architectural photography. And I have to say Lightroom with Photoshop. Because Lightroom in of itself, I don't, I'm sorry. Both Lightroom and Photoshop, I have to use in my pro work. And not because of the noise reduction, because I always shoot at ISO 200, but because of all of the features it has for layers and stacking and things that I need in my pro work for bracketing. But I would say, everything else, I use Workspace. All of the photos that you see in my vlogs that I do online, all of the sample photos, I try to do straight out of camera, and then I use Workspace a little bit to experiment with some of the art filters. And it does a really good job actually if I want to sharpen images or slightly reduce things. So Workspace is really just sort of an advanced version of what you can do in camera with a little bit more features. But yeah, I like Workspace, and that's because I would say I'm already 90 to 100% there of what I want in camera already, and Workspace just simply tweaks it, maybe a little more, if any, that I need to do. But if I were shooting images, like as a beginning photographer, if I was shooting images and not getting the images I want in camera, but I need to deliver or I need to make it look good, I would recommend Adobe Photoshop Elements. It's only like $79, $80, every day. I think list price is $100, but you can get it for 20, 30% off all the time. That's probably the better choice for working with images. Oh, Mr. Dick, I don't know why they took that off the EM5 Mark III. I think they did it just to distinguish the EM5 Mark III and the EM1 Mark II, to distinguish one as a pro camera and one as a pro enthusiast, but not professional work. So that's kind of a shame that they took the tethering off the EM5 Mark III. They really and that they took away the grip with the extra battery and or headphone if you care about that. But I think that's just that was a very conscious decision by Olympus to distinguish the cameras. One is a pro camera, one is not. I have not found an aftermarket bracket yet, John, for my EM5 Mark III. Someone suggested one. Maybe it was you. Yeah, I think it was you. You emailed me about an L bracket that would work. I've done things like that before where I bought a generic L bracket and it works fine, but it's not. I don't really need an L bracket anymore for my pro work since getting the 8mm fisheye. I'm going to wait until there's actually a legitimate grip from a third party that will fit perfectly on here. Because you know the grip is not bad on the M5 Mark III, and you know I don't really need it for kit lenses and small primes, but when I go out with the 12 to 40 Pro, I can hold it no problem, and I can hold it even with my 75 to 300. I've been going out with this lens. It'd be nice to have a grip because you know when you hold the camera, the grip is kind of like this. Your hands are like this, maybe a little bit curved, but it's not the same as having, you know, a nice solid grip this way with your hand. See, this is more natural versus holding something like this. You just don't have that same torques or whatever the physics are of that. So I'm looking for a third-party grip, and as soon as a good one comes out, I'll let you guys know. Oh, sure, Wally. I'm glad to help. Happy Sunday, Adam. Okay, I'll if I go to Florida, I'll make an announcement if I ever go anywhere. Uh, we had this question in our Facebook group the other day. Maybe you know. Does Workspace defish? Yes. It does defish. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Let me finish reading the question. We know it does in camera on the MK. The only time that Workspace will defish an image if it's already available in camera. So if like the EM5 Mark III, the EM1 Mark II, and the EM1X all have defish for this lens, the 8mm fisheye. And if you take a raw image of the if you take a raw image using the fisheye lens with one of these cameras and then bring it into Workspace, yeah, you'll be able to just do a one-click defishing. If you use an EM10 Mark II with a fisheye lens, take a raw image, you're not going to be able to defish that in Workspace. So the camera has to have that ability already before Workspace will do it. And that, I don't know what the limitation is there. I think it's just Workspace, like I said, is really just a software version of what's in our camera already put onto our computers. And then they added a few other things. But I think the core programming is still the same thing that's in our cameras. They just, instead of recompiling it, and that's kind of a software thing, but instead of recompiling it for the TruePic 8 or 9 or TruePic 8 processor, they just recompiled it for, you know, our PC Intel processors to work. So I think that's why there's I think that's why Olympus Workspace really doesn't do much more than what can already be done in camera. Just my theory. I don't know for a fact. But I think that's all they did was recompile our camera software to work on PCs. And for them to re-engineer the software to defish things that weren't already built into the camera would require more extensive reprogramming of the software itself. And they're just not putting money into that or doing research into that, you know, R&D for that. They may not have the same engineers they had when they made the software in our cameras to begin with. Okay, so hopefully that answered your question. Yeah, photodiox is awesome, you know. And all of these Chinese, and I assume the Chinese third-party things, a lot of them, as you probably know, are very similar, if not exactly the same, and they just change the paint on the front and change the name of who's selling it, you know, whether it's Newer or Photodiox or Mikey. They're probably all manufactured at the same place, but then just rebranded. But what I've noticed with photodiodes and newer, for example, some people call it newer, but I was corrected by the manufacturer because we've been talking. It's actually pronounced newer. Uh, these companies they have a really good selection of items. So when you're looking for third-party items, photodiodes and newer probably have it, whereas some of the other brands that are not as well established, they may have the same part, but they won't have the same selection as photodiodes. Uh, oh, ACDC is awesome too. You're right, John. Yeah, ACDC. And the other thing about ACDC, it's a third-party software. And I looked at that, earlier this year. It does have metadata uh, database capabilities, uh, which is really interesting to me. So if you're really into organizing photos and things, the ACDC software does work with the metadata to a greater extent, keywords and things, which may or may not be more efficient than what Lightroom does. Uh, well, I think efficiency is the wrong word. I think it may not be as robust as the Lightroom data catalog management or picture management, but I think it would be a lot more efficient and less load on your computer. So if you have a lower end PC, I think ACDC is a much better way to go, um, assuming it does the image processing well. So always download the trial software, see if it works and gets you the quality you want, and then look at the data catalog management side. I mean, the reason I recommend Elements, and it's very robust, but then it's not as efficient as some of these other softwares. Um, but I liked Photoshop Elements for its data catalog management. It's really good at that. My real estate setup is very simple. I I pack my EM1 Mark II. It used to be the EM10 Mark II until I broke it. But the EM1 Mark II with this 8mm fisheye and my kit lens, 14 to 42 kit lens for a couple of shots that I do outside sometimes, so I don't have to defish things. And that's it. And then my and then my 8200, to pop, so I can get the colors accurate and lighting and stuff. And that's it. Um, I've done 4 jobs this week with that exact setup, and um none of them weren't huge offices, but that's all I need really. I was thinking about getting another flash, a little bit more powerful one for bigger spaces, but for now I just use that twice. I pop it in one area, then I go to the other, and I get by. But sometimes having one light might be nice. um, Oh, hi, Brian. I'm not that familiar with ACDC. John McCormick seems like he's got the scoop on that and uses it. So maybe direct a question to him. I'm sorry. Oh, you did. You said John. My mistake. Is the OMD M1 still a good camera? I know it's a little old. For still photography, Ed, it's fine. You know, the image quality out of it is, and I would say this for any of the Olympus cameras, all the way back to the EPL1. If you're shooting at normal ISOs, under 1600, but if you're shooting normally at 200 ISO or anything under 1600, any Olympus camera that's ever come out is going to be good enough for most static images, still life, travel photography, you know, events where people are kind of sitting or standing taking their picture. And that's mainly because we have such a great lens selection now that we can go into almost any kind of situation and get the shot with the right lens and the right gear, flashes and things. So what I like about the EM1, the Mark 1, is it still uses the tilt screen versus the fully articulating like on the M5 that comes all the way out. I think the tilt screen for photography is better, and then it has the grip. Because the M1 Mark II, they switched to the fully articulating. And for some reason, I think this fully articulating screen is way overrated in all of the online YouTube reviews that I see. I mean, it's a nice to have if you're doing video work, but in the end, I think just having a regular tilt screen is a better workflow for most photographers. And I only need this because I vlog. So for me, this was a much better choice. But most of you guys aren't vlogging, right? So that's why I like the M1. It has a great grip. The Mark I, a great grip, and the tilt screen. And the image quality is fantastic out of it. So if you can get one for $300-400, you're getting a killer camera. And it has all of the features like focus stacking and bracketing and lens info profiles and things. It has a lot of tremendous professional features for a camera that costs, less than some lens filters. Okay, Noah, good night. Thanks for coming in. Oh yeah, Sulatan, thanks. Yeah, and Peter did just do a video on the M1, and he's, of course his images are awesome in that video. He does have a lot of good images. Man, I can't believe my live streams now. I'm not like losing video. Oh, I need to shut up. My last live stream, I lost video. Hopefully it won't happen today, but I've been practicing a little bit, trying to improve my lighting and things. And I think the audio is nailed. The audio sounds good usually. And now I need to work on this lighting situation. So you prefer the articulating. You mean fully articulating like on the M5, Sam, that comes all the way around, or because you want to close it like this, right? Yeah. I mean, that I guess that works. Like I said, it's for photography. When I do architectural photography, I have to tilt this up sometimes when I'm composing because I'm very conscious of the pitch and yaw of the camera, and I can't do that through a viewfinder, unfortunately. So I have to have the screen out. So for me, I chimp like crazy anyway. So there's that. But in terms of photography, I have to be able to look at it, pitch and roll, for my architectural work. So having that tilty is important for me. Yeah, 8-bit Ed, that's a killer deal on the EM1. Now, what's nice is you can use heavier lenses and things on that EM1 because of the grip. And you got the bottom battery grip, so you got all-day shooting available too. So, that's an awesome setup. It's an awesome setup. Now, the M1 Mark I is not great at videos, so you may want to revert back to the M10 if you do any video. But oh, hey, Robin, how you doing? Thanks for coming in. Robin Wong is here, everyone. So if you have any questions for Robin, well, he's a guest here, so I don't want to throw things on him. If you have any questions, direct them to me. But if Robin's willing, he can answer questions too, as well as Sulanto blog. Two of the most awesome Micro Four Third, channels, on YouTube, really. Okay, Robin, great. Yeah, Robin's happy to answer any questions too. He's I don't know, Robin. Do you have a video on on using extended ISO. I don't know. I mean, it's like I said, it's better to use if you have to use higher ISOs. It's better to do it in the camera than trying to push and pull it in post processing. Um, Now, Robin, if you saw my last vlog called "Good Day for Bad Photos," you can see all of the lens flare because you can see I use this camera. It's still from that day. I didn't put any lens hood on my kit lens, and you can see all the frickin' flare I got without it. Oh my God, it was killing me. Because I know you made that video on that you don't use lens hoods, and all your reasons make sense. But man, for me, God, if I don't put a lens hood on, because I do use the wide angle lenses. Uh, because the lens flare is not as big a deal on the tighter lenses, 45 millimeters and up. But if you go a little wider, it's a little bit of an issue, lens flare. Um, I haven't seen that video yet. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like a 3-minute video, because or 3 or 4 minute. I can't remember, but I didn't get any shots on that robin that were worth a damn. That's why I just and that was the video. A funny story. Robin and I and a couple others have been talking in between our videos, and Robin, that was the video that I lost my audio transmitter, right, from my camera. So if you watch that video, there's a lot of audio in there that's coming straight from this camera versus through the microphone. So the audio is all over the place on that video, and then I was getting lots of lens flare. And the irony is that was the perfect day to go out and take photos because I had great light and I had I had the time and I had the best camera, right, ever made. And I went out and I totally bombed. It just nothing worked that day. Um, oh, Alan, the OM10. Nice. Yeah, good old film camera. God, I need to go out and finish that roll of film I had. It's been a couple of weeks. um, Photokina. I don't even know when that is. I probably won't go. I've never been to any big photo event, mainly because it's kind of expensive for me to go. Even if it's like local in New York, I'd have to drive up there, parking, hotels, and then and I think that's the problem with Photokina these days is everything is pre-released, as demos to a lot of ambassadors, visionaries, all the new gear that comes out before it even goes to Photokina. It used to be you had to go to Photokina to see what was coming out, but that's just not the case anymore. You can see everything at launch events and things even before Photokina starts, and there's not a lot of motivation for uh, really, I think, to go see what's new. If that's all you need to, if that's all you want to do at Photokina, and that seems to be why most people go, right, is the announcements of new cameras to see and touch and feel things in real life. But that's just being done already uh, ahead of Photokina. So I think they're losing attendance in that respect. But I would love to go. I might go. I don't know. I wasn't planning on it, but if I have the time, maybe, and the budget, I don't make that much money, so it's tough call for me. Uh, this may be a strange question, but in the past year, my eyesight has really dropped for reading close up, so I'm struggling with using the EVF. Um, I can't answer that. I mean, the only thing I can tell you about the EVF is it does have this diopter adjustment. Most EVFs do somewhere, usually right next to the EVF itself. So you can try adjusting for that and see if that helps. But I can appreciate your eyesight not, as you get older, because I'm having a hard time myself seeing the back of the live view even anymore without holding it, at arm's length. And then by then I can't compose or do anything. So I find myself wearing reading glasses a lot more often. Oh, a meet and greet, yeah, yeah. It might be fun. I don't know. That's like I said, it's a little bit outside of my budget to do things like that because it's if you go somewhere for 3 or 4 days anywhere in this country, in the United States, I should say. I mean, it's $1,000, to do that, not counting airfare. So that's why I don't really go. Oh, I'm using the Fifine. Somebody's asked me what microphone do I use. I did a review on this microphone on one of my videos. So yeah, just check that video out. It's a Fifine 660 or something. I can't remember the name of it exactly. But I got the articulating arm, with it, and this shock mount microphone with the foam. It also came with like a little puffer thing. What do they call it? Pop filter for like $60, and you can check out my video though. It's I do a review on it, so to speak, but it's no different than me just talking to you here, right? Because that's all I did in the video is say, what do you think of the sound quality? If you like it, buy it. That's all. Let's see. Let's see what. I was thinking Photokina here in the. I don't know anything about these shows. Photokina is not in the United States, I guess, right? I don't know. I can't even. If it's out of the country, I'm definitely not going. My God. Maybe if I had 1 million subscribers, then maybe. But. Phew. Oh, wow. Bob got really good service. They replaced your whole camera, huh? I guess the M1, the original Mark 1 had a couple of failure points that were maybe not common, but not uncommon, right? Oh, Photokina's in Germany. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Sulatan. I don't, so I'm definitely not going to Germany. My God. I don't even have a passport, because I hate to travel. Traveling is not for me. I did it once. I went to Malaysia, actually, Robin. Wonderful country, awesome food. The food is awesome, but yeah, I don't like the process of flying from where I am to where I want to go. That part in between is just too big a hurdle for me. So yeah, if it was in New York, there was some show in New York recently. I might do that, but that's still like $1,000 without airfare for me to go. I'm not doing that. Okay, any other questions for Photo Plus in New York? Yeah, that sounds right. I mean, it'd be fun to go because I know a lot of viewers go there, and then a lot of other channels, the hosts of other channels go there. So it'd be a nice networking opportunity, meet and greet opportunity. I'll also meet with some of the manufacturers. World tour photo walks. Not happening, Kent. Sorry. Man, I'm a little xenophobic, right? I just don't don't like to travel. You know, you go to a different country, and I have friends that want me to go with them, and I said I can't do it. I think Peru was one of them. She wanted me to go to Peru with her. I said I can't. And that's one of the challenges I have in my dating scene, right? Is if I used to be on Match years and years ago, right? And man, I said I don't like to travel, so that ruled me out of like 90% of the people on on that group. But anyhow, that's got nothing to do with photography, other than I had to do a profile picture. Um, okay, so I don't see any questions, so maybe we'll do a shorter live stream today. Man, that would be something, right? Because my live streams have been 2 hours plus. Oh, I'm sorry, Leon. I did miss. Did I miss your question or the Ollie? Uh, I'm not familiar with the Panasonic 7 to 15. I'm sure it's something else. I don't think they have a 7 to 15, but whatever it is, I'm not familiar with Panasonic lenses. But I know the 918 is very, very sharp. It's a fabulous lens, and it's very compact. So I would probably steer you towards the 918 unless you need that 7 millimeter wide. Um, oh, the seven. I know what lens you're talking about. My 7 to 14 that I have. My mistake. Yeah, the 7 to 14. F4 or I would probably go with the 918 unless you have a need to be at 7 millimeters, Leon. Because they cost about the same, right? You might be able to get the 918 a little bit cheaper. Uh, but the problem with the 7 to 14 Panasonic that I have, oh yeah, this one, is I get terrible purple lens flares out of this, and I can work around it, but yeah, the lens flare on this is pretty hard to get rid of if you get stuck with it in post processing. It's very difficult to get rid of. And the 918, I understand, doesn't have that issue. But there's, in terms of sharpness, though, the 7 to 14 and the 918 are probably pretty close. Oh, okay, Sam. Minimizing workflow. Okay, in terms of workflow, if you mean like when you're out actually taking the picture and then bringing it back into post processing, or are you talking about once you took the image, what do you do in post processing? Because most of the work to eliminate noise is done when you take the picture. And it really depends on how much light you have to begin with, right? So let's say you have to be at ISO 6400 for whatever reason. And it's not completely dark yet, like it's not nighttime photography. Then generally I would recommend exposing a little bit more to the right, meaning bringing up the shadows more, because there's still enough light to bring the shadows up without bringing in too much noise, and exposing to the right will help you with that. Now, if it's already nighttime and you're at high ISOs, I recommend exposing to the left and crushing the shadows down to black and working with your composition, keeping in mind that you're going to have a lot of negative space and black space. Because when there's not a lot of light, trying to expose or bring up the shadows by exposure in the camera, it's going to bring a lot of noise no matter what. Because there just isn't enough light there to overcome the noise or shot noise that's in the camera. I shouldn't call it shot noise, but your cameras all have a certain noise floor where if you start to get near that, you're going to get a lot of noise in the image no matter what. And getting near that, I mean you're not getting enough light into the camera to be higher than the noise floor of the circuitry of the camera itself. So they call that the signal to noise ratio. So at night, I recommend exposing to the left and just crushing all of that noise into the black. And then the only thing that's going to be exposed are the brighter areas. But if it's daytime, you have enough light that your SN ratio, your signal noise ratio, is high enough that you can expose to the right and bring the shadows in with less noise. It's hard for me to explain it verbally. I think visual, maybe I'll have to do a video on that, or maybe Robin or someone's done a video on that. But that's my rule is it has to be done, because there's very little you can do once you've taken the image. Then you're going to rely on software like DxO or Lightroom or etc. That kind of thing. So I hope I answered that question. Yeah, I've heard that. Solanto, I've heard that on Panasonic cameras, there's no purple flaring with that lens. And it confuses me because some people say you cannot correct for flare in software or in the camera. And I'm like, well, people are telling me they're not getting flare with their Panasonic cameras. So that would be an interesting experiment. If you have access to an Olympus camera, if you already own one, because I don't have any Panasonics, and you have that lens, I don't know, maybe I have to do it. I mean, I've been looking at a Panasonic GX85. With the 12 to 32, maybe I'll go get that today. They're open today too. And then I'll just try for myself, Yeah, Leon, the 7 to 4. Okay, I got back to you on that. Yeah, Lightroom has masking, and there's a lot of advanced techniques for reducing noise. Some people like to split the image into its individual channels for RGB, and there's so many techniques for reducing noise that I don't trade in my Fuji. Oh my God, I looked at my Lightroom catalog, and I haven't taken an image with that Fuji in a month since getting it, and it's a shame because it's a nice little camera, but it has some issues in workflow for me, and I think that are just don't make any sense to me. Some of the things on the dials. Okay, I'm gonna have to pause for 1 second, everyone, because I didn't change the battery on my EM1, and it's about to die. Oh, hey, Kent. Yeah, I'm not experiencing that. I've been using that lens on my Olympus cameras, the Panasonic 7 to 14, for a couple of years, and I always got purple flaring. And I do want to talk about batteries in a second. I'm going to change this real quick in my camera. Yeah, thanks, Solanto. I figured there's something. So it's not the software; it's just the filters on the lenses, right? On the sensor itself. Because sensors all, even though they're the same sensor potentially, they might have different micro lenses and things on front that work better with their own images. And that's why I always recommend, buy Olympus lenses for Olympus cameras and vice versa. Even though there are some very fine lenses on both sides, sometimes there's some compatibility or image quality issues that you get on one camera versus another. Oh, hey Eddie, yeah, I use it all the time, highlight and shadows, all the time. I'm working on a video where I show my street photography setup, and that is definitely Um, I use a lot of highlight shadows when I'm out in the field. Okay, Robin. Yeah, I don't know anything about how thin or thick this aliasing filters are. uh, because some cameras have no AA filter. I thought the M10 Mark II had no AA filter on it. So maybe that's why I'm getting a lot of purple flare. Oh, yeah. How much time do people spend post-processing their images? I would, for me personally, not my real estate work. It's like 50-50 because I spend about an hour taking photos, and it takes me about an hour to process them. But that's different. For my normal photo walks and vlogs, it's more like 95% just taking pictures and 5 to 10% working in post processing. I rarely have to process much because I try really hard to get it right in camera. And if I didn't get it right in camera, I'll either spend a little bit more time on it or just try to learn from it and say, what did I do wrong with this image when I was out in the field? I'd rather learn from my mistakes in the field when I don't get an image right than trying to spend time in software trying to fix it. Because there's very little you can learn in photography. Well, let me rephrase that. You don't learn as much about his photography, I think, when you're working with a camera in the field and trying to do things correctly in the field versus learning how to use software. Because software can change. Lightroom, Adobe, right? Phase One, I don't know, all those different softwares, C1, DxO, they all do things so differently, but they never can correct for things if you get it wrong in the camera to begin with, most of the time. But hey Arthur, how are you? Yeah, no, I didn't think they were that great. Thanks, Arthur, though. I appreciate that. Um, yeah, post processing usually for me is just a tilt or crop. Uh, exposure wise, like I said, if I got it wrong in the field, I try to learn from that when I look at the image on in Workspace and say, okay, how can I expose this image differently, or is that an image that's just impossible without bracketing, right? Because you can push pull about 2-3 stops in post processing, but you're going to bring in noise or lose colors one way or the other when you start pushing images, regardless if it's a raw file or not. So I look at some images like, man, I need to bracket a shot like that or do an HDR because there's just too much dynamic range. Or did I get the white balance wrong? When I take the picture, because white balance is a very common post processing thing I have to do, and then crop and tilt. But that's like 1 or 2%, right, of time to correct those things in raw. The top 3 things. Well, number one is always the exposure. I want to make sure, and then the camera does a good job by itself, but I would say half the time I have to do plus or minus exposure compensation to expose for the subject that I want. So that's the most important thing, is the exposure. Secondly would be the composition. And I'm very conscious of my corners, and I'm going to talk about that in another video. My corners and rule of odds, because after a while, all of the composition rules kind of come into play in your brain, and you kind of go through them like a checklist. So I work, number 2 is always composition. And really, maybe those are 2 broad stroke because I'm having a hard time thinking of a third thing. But those are the two things that I focus on. That and making sure I got enough battery and memory. But I'm sorry, Bob. I hope that wasn't too broad stroke. If you want me to be a little more granular on that, I can. Oh yeah, focus, focus, of course. That's kind of a given, though, I think, right, Robin? But you're right. I did leave focus out. What am I focusing on, right? So I would add to that in addition to focus. So if there's a third thing, it's going to be focus and depth of field. Do I need to isolate the subject via depth of field, or do I need to isolate it some other way with lighting or patterns or empty space, etc., or by color? Sometimes you can separate a subject just by color alone. So yeah, I would say that, but that's really part of composition, right? Is focus and subject separation. What is your subject? Yeah. Yeah, Arthur, you're right. If you have presets that you've developed for yourself, like I don't have them for my normal photo walks and vlogs, but for my professional real estate work, I've created a couple of presets that that speed up my workflow a lot for post processing. Oh, in that video, John, with the Kingfisher, I used my 75 to 300 and my Olympus Pen F. And on the Pen F, I did that digital zoom in video. I think it's a 4x crop digital zoom. And it was at the max ISO at 6400 for some of those because it was getting dark when he was smacking that fish around. But this is what I used. And that's what I mean, 2 years ago, and that was footage from 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was getting awesome images out of this lens, but that was in the summertime, so maybe I might have to wait till summer to really start to get some good images out of this again, because the lighting in the wintertime is not great. And I was extended. I'm sorry, John. Let me add. I was extended all the way out to 300 millimeters with the Pen F in 4x crop, 1080p video for that shot. So just to kind of give you all the exact specs. I'm still using the Mark 1. Yeah, I would wait for the Mark 3, Keith. The Mark 1 is a fabulous camera. There's no need to upgrade unless there's something very specific on the Mark 2 that you want. I know the Mark 2, the Mark 2 is going to have better battery life and better video, but I don't see any reason to upgrade from the EM1 Mark 1 to the Mark 2 unless you need one of those two things, video and battery life. And of course it has better autofocusing, but I would wait for the Mark 3, to be honest, and see what it brings to the table. And if it doesn't bring anything exciting that you need, keep the Mark 1, or you can get a Mark 2 for very cheap. Oh, thanks, Bob. The Kingfisher. Yeah, that was a lucky shot. He was really far away too. Oh, sorry, Roman. You don't have to wait. You can go anytime. My battery's about to die on this, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to recover from it. I have my spare. Oh, I was going to talk. Where did I put the spare now? So if this dies, I'm SOL. Oh, here it is. Okay, so battery life on the EM1 Mark II is awesome. I just started this live stream, and it said I had 55 minutes left on the battery, and I've been going an hour and 10 minutes now. So it's pretty accurate for that, because it's been blinking red for the last 15 minutes. Yeah, John, man, in Florida, it's always good. It's easy to get birds there. There's birds everywhere in Florida, along the coast anyway. I don't know about inland, but along the coast, man, there are some awesome birds there. When I was in Florida back in 2005, I got amazing pictures of birds with just a little compact camera. Uh, and because there was this restaurant that, oh, I think I talked about that. I think we talked about that before. But there was a restaurant that throw away its old seafood from the day, and then all the birds and fish would know about it and come in, and big birds would come in. I just leave my image stabilization set to auto. I don't really mess with that too much. Oh, I'm gonna try and get the video back up. I just swapped the battery, but it did not bring the video back. Sometimes if I do this, it comes back. I don't know how I swapped batteries last time and got the video to come back so easily. Oh, bear with me, folks. I think I can get this to come back. That's my webcam, all my extra lighting. Okay. Oh, not bad. All right. Yeah, sorry about that interruption, but realized I was always need to click a picture and then review composition. You seem to do it before the click. Yeah, I always compose before I take the shot. Always. Oh, Sultan. How did I get the battery empty? If I let the battery run out, and actually that's a screenshot from the camera. That's the last thing the camera displayed before it actually shut down, and that's what captured on the live stream. So I didn't do anything. Yeah, Kent, the EM1 Mark 1 and the Pen F use the same battery. But I'm using the EM1 Mark 2. But like I said, I started the live stream without swapping this battery first. Yeah, Arthur, if you get a good deal on EM1 Mark 1, you might try it. Because it has everything you want and a nice grip. And more than the EM10 Mark II. And for photography, it's a fabulous camera. The only thing I'm worried about is, and I don't think you shoot like this, but because it has the phase detect sensors on it, or autofocus system, the low light performance might not be as strong in terms of trying to push and pull shadows. But I think in a lot of your photography, you like to crush the shadows to black anyway, so it may not be an issue. Yeah, John, that the 4150 is awesome. But I can't remember. Did you have the Pro lens or the regular kit lens? I'm thinking about getting the Pro version. Yeah, the kit 40 to 150, I've gotten some awesome shots too. If I'm close enough, yeah, I get terrific shots. I love that 40 to 150 kit lens. And it's between f4 and f5.6, so it's actually just enough light that I can use it, any time of the year, even if it's a little cloudy out. It's always better with more light, but the 75 to 300, man, if it's a little cloudy out, it's hurting. But okay, I don't know. Let me go back to this battery issue. For the EM5 Mark III, someone pointed me to a link on eBay. I don't know who. Maybe you're here today, about buying these Olympus original batteries from China. for like $15. Okay, instead of paying $50 or $60 like this one here. This just came in yesterday for me from China. It took about 3 weeks to get it. And I paid like $16 for this. And it looks legit, like a real battery. And I'm going to test it today and measure the actual power that comes out of this battery, because I bought this device that measures the number of milliamps that it draws from a battery. Well, I'll have to do a video on batteries, because my other battery, like I compared this generic battery. What the heck am I in mirror image here? Anyway, I am in a mirror image. No wonder this looks weird on me. Anyway, I compared this to an Olympus original battery, and I drew the number of milliamps. This one gave me just under 800 milliamps, and the Olympus original battery gave me 1150 milliamps. So I got like 750 out of this generic, and I got 1150 out of this. So not double, but about 40% more, right? Battery life out of an original battery than these generics. And so I'm going to do the same test against this one I got from China that claims to be an Olympus original battery. And one of the challenges that I had is I looked at the date on it, and it says 2018, September of 2018. And so it's over a year old, this battery that I got from China. And when I got it in, it was totally dead, meaning it would not charge at all. So I did the trick to wake up dead batteries that haven't been, that have drained. Because lithium-ion batteries, if you drain them down to zero, some chargers won't charge them back. You have to be able to wake the battery up. So I did that little trick of waking the battery up with some cables that I have. And then I finally was able to get it to charge. So now this is fully charged, and I'm going to run some tests. But if this pans out, that you can buy Olympus original batteries for $16, I'm going to make a video on this with my affiliate links, okay? So you guys can buy these things for $16. But for now, I don't know if it's legit or not. You know, it may end up being a 700 or 800 milliamp battery, not a true Olympus original. So that's the news that's going to be coming up here in the near future on my channel. Is I'm going to go through some different batteries that I have and explain a little more in detail about the difference between generics and originals. You know, I always recommend to use original batteries, but as you know, we all buy the cheap ones too, right? And this is what you get. I wanted to show you what you actually get when you buy a generic battery. So there's that. Okay. Oh, Jan, you're using Luminar 4. Okay. I've gone back to that time to time, but like I said, there's kind of a learning curve to every software. I use a free one called let me pull it up. Yeah, Photoscape. Photoscape X is one that I use for just my very, very simple edits sometimes. And I've never posted anything I've done except when you see the split screens where I do collages, a lot of times that I did with the Photoscape because it has a very simple collage feature that just takes too many steps if I use Photoshop. I can do it very easily with Photoscape. Raw Therapy. I've seen it. Yeah, Raw Therapy does okay. Like I said, all these there's some free software out there. Raw Therapy, another one. I forget what it's called. Dark Table is another one that people seem to really like. I did play with Dark Table a little bit. But man, like I said, the learning curve, whether it's Raw Therapy, Dark Table, Capture One, all these softwares, the learning curve is so steep to get really, really good at using them that I just haven't taken the time to do that because I can get what I want in camera and then I can tweak it a little bit with Workspace, and that's good enough for me. Yeah, I hate the subscription model. Uh, in theory, in practice, it's been working fine for me. But that's kind of I can justify it with my professional work. It's not ideal, but then it's working for me as a professional for $10 a month. Yeah, raw printing use Luminar. Yeah, that makes sense. It's true. I mean, always try to get it right in camera, and then you can save a few gray hairs in your eyes and everything, and your neck. Mm. But okay. Yeah, Jan, it makes sense. I mean, I think, like I said, Luminar, Photoshop Elements, whatever those, they're less than $100. There's a lot of photo editors out there that you can try for free and then pay for if you want. Some of them are free forever, like Raw Therapy and Darktable. Um, yeah, if you're just a hobbyist, you don't need to spend much money, if any at all. Um, yeah, Darktable. Yeah, I played with it for about a half an hour, and I was getting nowhere. Hey lad, how are you, Darwin? Yeah, yeah. I hear Lightroom is kind of priced differently around the world. Who is it? There's a guy on Jay Christina. I think that's his channel. Jay Christina has a uh, what is it? What does he call it? Cutting the cord and some Lightroom Photoshop alternatives. So you might want to check his channel out for that. I didn't really watch them because I don't need to cut the cord, but he did a series of videos on that. I don't know if he actually goes in and uses the software and reviews it, but like I said, there's so many softwares for less than $100 or free that you can try and just find out for yourself. Don't rely on somebody's review online. But you can check out his channel. He may point out some that haven't been mentioned here yet. Um, oh, GIMP. God, I haven't used GIMP in a long time. I used to use that way back. I install it on every computer anytime I upgrade, and I keep it updated, but I haven't actually used it. Yeah, you can load the raw files directly into Photoshop too, but it's just not a workflow I'm good at. I have to bring it into Lightroom for the photo management feature. Um, okay, I need to sit up straight more. I'm getting this crick in my neck. How come this doesn't lock? Well, anyway, I have to do these neck exercises now because we're all looking down like this so much. Ah. Okay, any other questions on cameras, lenses, workspace, photography in general? Because I can wrap this up maybe at 11 o'clock, like in 4 minutes. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm very, very happy with the JPEGs from our cameras. So I do a lot of art bracketing, and I'll talk about that in the video when I do my settings that I use for my street photography and just general photography in general. Face pull, I don't know what that is. Let me write it down though. I'm open to any ideas to help relieve some of this tension sometimes. The Fuji versus Pen F black and white modes. Oh, like I said, I don't know. I need to, since I got the M5 Mark III, I haven't taken the Fuji out in a month. I need to do that though. I set it up. I'd set up. I set up the Fuji on this bracket, and then I was going to put my Pen F here on the other side and do these side-by-side comparisons. So I am trying to develop a workflow that I can do it a little bit easier and a little more consistently between the two cameras. So I'm working on it. I haven't forgotten about it, but it's just when you're a one-man band, it's tricky to manage comparing two cameras and then also having to vlog with those cameras at the same time. So potentially it's 3, 4, 5 cameras all together to make one video to do comparisons like that. But yeah, I'm working. I'm trying to get a workflow that works better for me than I've done in the past. Because the past videos where I did comparisons between the two cameras, I was just holding the two cameras by hand, and that's how I end up dropping things. Yeah, I hear Adobe Bridge is good, but I've never used that, Arthur. He's also drinking and promoting his teas. I didn't know. I don't know what he promotes. I know he's always drinking, but I can appreciate that because when I'm talking for an hour, 2 hours straight, you get a little cotton mouth. So and it's cold here. If it was summer, I'd be drinking like ice water or something. But it's cold in my house. Do you think that the mount on the M10 Mark III is strong enough for a heavier lens? That's a good question. I'm not familiar. Because, yeah, I would still I would still use the 40-150 Pro with the collar that comes with it, regardless of what camera you're using. Because even if it's a very strong mount, like on an EM1 Mark II, there's potential for flexing and bending that mount and ruining your camera. No matter how well the camera's made, there's leverage there against the mount that you don't want to put if you don't have to. So always use a collar if you can. The cloud. Yeah, I don't really do anything on the cloud, but I just rather buy a hard drive. The PL8's microphone input, it's awesome. It is awesome. You can use the Pen PL8. He's talking about this. I'm always dropping things. The SEMA adapter for the Pen PL8. It's awesome. Very clean. Better than the EM1 Mark II. Believe it or not, this has better sound than the EM1 Mark II. the noise floor on this is a little bit lower in my experience. So don't worry, this is a very, very clean signal. I've used $2 and $3 mics on this. I bought like a 3-pack for $6 with just had it kind of extended out and clipped to my thing. It works great. And then any wireless mic or anything, because it has a relatively hot signal. It's not too quiet. It has a very hot signal, so I have to turn the volume down, or the internal volumes down, quite a bit. Whereas on the EM1s, I have to turn it up a little bit for some of my microphones. Do I have a Leica monochrome? No, I do not. Leica's way out of my budget. One day I'll own a Leica, maybe, but not anytime soon. Let's see. For my straight out of camera JPEG shots, do you shoot only JPEG or RAW plus JPEG? Yes. Okay, so I do shoot RAW plus JPEG, but I rarely need the RAW file. And I just use the JPEG. So I art bracket my JPEGs. So I'll art bracket sepia, monochrome, and instant film, whatever my selections are. I'll bracket about 3 or 4 art filters, and just use those. Sometimes I crop it in camera, but usually I'll tilt or adjust the horizon slightly in Workspace. Now, the only time I need the raw file is if I want to experiment a little with some of the other art filters. So say, for example, I took a picture and I didn't like the art filters that I bracketed already in camera. I can try a different one and see how that looks. So usually the raw files, I'll try grainy black and white, or the other one, I can't remember what it's called. But there's a couple other filters that I like to try that I don't do in camera very often, but like to try if I didn't like what I got. Sometimes I need to push the highlights and shadows a little bit more, so I'll need the raw file for that. But yeah. But if I went out and shot JPEG only, because I do the art bracketing, it would be okay. Because like I said, I rarely use the raw file. Now for my professional work, I shoot raw only, but that's because I'm always bracketing and layering shots for my images, because I'm almost always in a high dynamic range scene, with window light coming in, but I need to expose for the interior and exterior at the same time. So that's the only time I shoot raw only, is when I'm doing my pro work, and that's only because I have to bracket shots. There was a time I accidentally left the camera in JPEG only, but I was still able to deliver the images fine. I just bracketed the JPEGs together, and it actually came out fine, but okay. The GX85. I might get a GX85 today. I'm thinking about it because I can get it for like $350 with a 12 to 32. I really just want the lens. But if I can get the lens and the camera for $350, I don't know. I might do that today. They open up in about an hour. Roman, the PenF monochrome mode is good, yeah. And you can get that PenF monochrome look in your OMD camera. I have a video on that, and it's called that exactly, how to get that PenF monochrome in the OMDs. It's basically just adjusting the highlights and shadows. Long story short. Okay, Roy has a question. I have an OMD M1 and an OMD 10 Mark II, looking to exchange the two for an OMD EM1 Mark II. Okay, if you I would say, I think that would be an awesome way to go. Get rid of those two cameras and get the M1 Mark II, because the M1 Mark II has the distinct advantage in battery life and autofocus and video, if you're into video. So if you can trade those two in and buy the M1 Mark II, you won't regret that decision, I think, at all. That being said, if you're only worried about image quality alone, and the battery life and everything else is not an issue or as big an issue, you might want to wait for the M1 Mark III and see what it brings to the table. Or look at the M5 Mark III for the smaller, lighter weight. So because those two cameras are very different. The M10 Mark II, the upgrade path really for me would be an EM5 Mark III. And the M1 Mark I, the upgrade path would be an EM1 Mark II. But you're talking about trading both of those to get an EM1 Mark II. So I'm not sure where your priority is, Roy. If you like the grip of the M1, then it makes sense to go to the M1 Mark II. Or you want the battery life or the better autofocus. But if you're doing static images, still quality, for stills and travel, the cameras you have now are fine. Yeah, tripods are pretty handy. I use them time to time. I try not to carry them if I don't have to, but yeah, for family things, and time lapses, there's lots of things to do. Astrophotography, tripod is really a good way to expand your photography into other areas. Macro photography, there's so many things that you can do with a tripod that you can't do handheld. Not just the low light stuff like astrophotography, but macro photography and all those kind of things. I hope 2020 brings the EM1 Mark III. I don't know. EM1 Mark III, because I guess Sony made a new sensor that's like 40 something megapixels for micro four thirds. And if that's intended for the consumer market, the M1 Mark III will have that. If it's intended for like medical devices and all that other stuff, I don't know what the M1 Mark III is going to bring to the table then. But currently, there's no rumors about an EM1 Mark III coming anytime soon. I mean, we can only speculate that it needs to come out in 2020. With that new 40-something megapixel sensor from Sony, right? That would be an interesting combination there. I would love to see it if they can make that work. That would definitely be a huge upgrade in terms of resolution and stuff. Hopefully the noise floor and everything else is better too, but it remains to be seen. All we can do is speculate. Yeah, well, the megapixels and the sensor are usually one and the same. Of course they are, right? What I meant was the sensor is usually manufactured with the same autofocus system, with the autofocus system on it. And then it's up to Olympus to make the software to drive the hardware autofocus system on the sensor. So yeah, I mean, what the limitation of Olympus's current autofocus system, in my opinion, is the granularity of the focusing points. There's only like 120 focusing points, so each square is like the size of my eye, right? Roughly. So they can do eye autofocus programming because the sensor The focusing point on the sensor is just the right size for someone's eye. But there's the Canon and all these other guys have hundreds of focusing points. So each focusing point is much smaller. So they'll be able to focus, say, on the eyelash, the eye pupil, right in, because like my eyes, for example, the way the focusing point is now is if you, not my eyes, but if you have somebody that has very deep recessed eyes, right, relative to their forehead, it might miss autofocus because the focusing point is just too big. So that's where Olympus needs to improve, or that's how I think Olympus can improve their autofocusing is by increasing the number of focusing point and making each focusing point smaller. So there's better granularity. And then of course it needs a new processor to process those greater number of focus points. Because if it has a higher resolution autofocus system, then everything's going to improve, assuming they have the processing power. They can do the animal detect, they can do the eye autofocus, subject tracking, and everything else will be much better. And that's why I was hoping the EM5 Mark III would have a new processor, but it doesn't. So we have to wait for the EM1 Mark III. Have I compared my EM5 Mark III compared to the EM1 Mark II? I have not compared the two, Thomas. The EM5 Mark III and the EM1 Mark II continuous autofocus. Because I don't have somebody that can run to and from me consistently that I can test something like that. Unfortunately, that's a test that's very difficult for me to duplicate. I haven't noticed any difference though personally. And usually with autofocusing, continuous autofocusing with those kind of shots where somebody's coming toward you very quickly, or like my dog running toward me, I mean, I would say 80 to 90% of that has to do with the photographer's skill to track the subject. But yeah, I haven't tested it, so I can't really give you any analysis or opinion on that. Yeah, Robin says he's doing fine with his motorsports and other type of action. But yeah, Thomas, I don't know if there is any difference between the two systems. There's no way for me to measure it. It'd probably be that small a difference between the two. What do you think of? Okay, bye, Mr. Digger. Thanks for coming in. What do you think of moving from 4/3 micro Mark 1 to Mark 2? You need to be a little more specific, but generally any of the Mark 1 cameras from Olympus take just as good a picture as the Mark 2s in terms of just static images, The only reason you'd want to go to a Mark II like the EM1 Mark II or the EM5 Mark III, for example, is for something very specific that you need in your photography. Maybe you need the better battery life, maybe you need the better video, or you need better continuous autofocus. Those are reasons you'd want to upgrade, but yeah, it would depend why you're moving. If you need something specific to your photography, if I didn't need to do video, my little Pen PL8 that I paid $200 for would be good enough. But I'm by video I mean vlogging, and I use this for vlogging a lot because of this screen and mic jack. But this is good enough for most of my photography. I just have a lot of this other camera because I have a bad case of gas. I mean, they're wonderful cameras. It's hard not to buy them, but Well, yeah, Mitchell, if you could be a little more specific by that question, I can help you a little more. Yeah, the PL8 uses the same as the M10 Mark II. They both have TruePic 7 processors, same focusing system. The PL8, the only limitation is, they handicapped it a little bit in some of the features and things, but capability-wise, it's fine. It's the same. Yeah, Roman, who really likes this pen EPL5 is that guy over at E6 Vlogs. I forget his name, maybe Craig Roberts or. But E6 Vlogs, he loves his little EPL5, man. And he just had a video out where he bought another Pen F. So he has two Pen Fs now because he doesn't want to swap lenses. He'd rather carry two cameras than swap lenses. I don't get the logic in that, but okay. I guess why not? I wish I could get away with just carrying one camera everywhere. Ooh. Yeah, having one dial is a little bit of a pain, but I worked out a really good workflow with this thing by reprogramming these two function buttons, um, and I didn't have any issues really workflow wise. Yeah, the 20 millimeter f1.7 will work fine on any Olympus camera. It's a fantastic lens, and I love pancake lenses. Yeah, sometimes Peter drops in. He might be here, just hasn't chimed in. Who knows? Uh, but we're planning uh, a four-way live stream here for January. We're just trying to work out some of the logistics of that. But Robin Wong and Peter Forsgaard and Sulatan and myself, the four of us, are going to do a live stream in January together. So just keep an eye out for that. We're going to start promoting that probably after we get the kinks worked out. But um, and that might be something we do on a regular basis if there's any interest in doing that. So let's see. Carrying two full frame is much more difficult than two. Yeah, true. Petition. PenF is not going to bring a PenF back unless they want to. I don't think they care what petitions we get. It's just a numbers game for them, right? And honestly, there's nothing wrong with a PenF the way it is. I wish it had a little better autofocusing on it. The autofocus on it is a little bit weaker than all my other Olympus cameras. But other than that, it's a fine camera. I don't see any room for improvement other than the autofocus. Yeah, I know. These corporations. I've said this before. These corporations, they can change their mind on a drop of a dime. I mean, they will not hesitate to drop a camera, add a camera, you know, close the entire division, start another division. I mean, they do everything like this on the quarter, at least in the United States, man. It's like, it is very cutthroat here in the US when it comes to corporate profits and what makes sense. Japanese corporate culture is probably different, so I can't speak to that. But I can tell you in practice, having come from the corporate world, it doesn't matter what anybody says. The only people that know what's going to happen is the CEO and the board of directors. Anybody below that, they can get a pink slip the next day and it'll be a shock to them. Because I've gotten pink slips like just out of the blue. And many of my friends and I used to work on a task force that would determine what departments would stay within the company or not. And so I've seen it, firsthand what corporations do. Yeah, you have a pretty big list there, Roman, for another Pen F. They really need to just come out with a new sensor. You know what worries me? And I'm going to try and end on this. Uh, all right, thanks, Royce. We'll see you later. Is they're going to come out with some sensor. I mean, they call it the organic sensor, or maybe they call it those RGBW sensors. Whatever the sensor tech, the global sensor tech, whatever the sensor technology that comes out, that's going to give you virtually unlimited dynamic range. Uh, for example, right now we have to bracket our shots, right, to capture dynamic range if we want the highlights and shadows. They're going to come out with a sensor that brackets each individual pixel in the image in one shot, so that as it's looking at the image, whether it's a global shutter where it looks everything at once, if it's able to bracket each individual pixel on the sensor, that's going to be a huge change in photography, and it's gonna get to the point to where they're going to be able to put, because the biggest complaint of small sensors, whether it's the sensors in people's smartphones and our compact cameras like our TG5, is they have no dynamic range and there's noise, right, and low ISO. But they're going to come out with a sensor that can work at base ISO, but then bracket the shots by individual pixel. You're going to be able to take a compact camera and get unlimited dynamic range out of a compact camera, out of a cell phone, what have you. And the only thing, and that's going to be a big change. The only thing that larger sensors and cameras are going to have the advantage is in the optics side, right? The lenses, focal length, zooming in, you know, um, depth of field to some extent, right? That's the only advantage that having a larger sensor is going to have. Like, that's why people buy medium format, cameras and still shoot a medium format film, because it has that large sensor, large optics sort of look to it. And that's something that's going to be extremely difficult to duplicate with a tiny sensor, regardless of the dynamic range of the sensor. But that's going to be the next biggest change, hopefully within the next 10 years, but where it's common. But okay, anyway, that's my speculation. Totally, I didn't read that anywhere. That's just my speculation. Uh, I cannot change exposure on manual mode on the OMD 10.3. Is this normal? No, that's not normal. Do you mean exposure compensation? Yeah, there's no exposure compensation in manual mode, but if you're talking about exposure in general, you control the exposure completely by changing shutter or aperture or ISO, but not exposure compensation, as far as I know. I don't have an EM10 Mark III to say, though, exactly, but on any of my other cameras, I don't have any issue. Um, do you do street photos sometimes? In one of your videos, I think you said you don't really like it. Yeah, if you mean street photography, mean taking pictures of people, yeah, I don't do that very often. I still have a hard time approaching people. I'm getting a little better at it, but I'm not so good that I can do a vlog where I'm just walking up to people all the time. That would be, yeah, I'm not there yet. I can get pictures of people as they're walking away and stuff, but even then, I feel a little bit weird. Uh, I've lost track here a little bit. In manual mode, the exposure changes with settings. There is no exposure as you are in full manual. Okay. Having a micro four thirds is great for street. Nobody sees. Okay. True. To some extent. It's a lot easier to go out with a little, virtually a pocket camera versus a full on, DSLR. Is there a big delta? I'm not sure. Not sure what you mean. Is there a big delta? I mean, it would have to be, right? What's your thoughts on budget macro lens for 43? Yeah, macro lenses, even if they're just manual focus is fine because most macro work you have to manually focus anyway. So save some money and get a cheap macro lens. I don't have any recommendations for a cheap macro lens. But what I've done before is I've adapted vintage macro lenses from Nikon. Like I have a 100 millimeter f2.8. I have a 60 millimeter f2.8 lens from Nikon that I manually focus to do macro work, and it's awesome. That's the cheapest way to do it, really. I would buy, if you want a quality macro lens, buy a vintage Nikon macro lens. If you want to just buy one of those, I assume there's some third-party made lenses that are manual focus that might be okay, but I'm not familiar with them. I've always bought vintage macro lenses. Ricardo, the 30 millimeter, yeah. The only problem with, I normally don't recommend the 30 millimeter macro lens if you're going to get an Olympus one. I would get the 60. Because the problem with the 30 millimeter lens is you have to get this close to the subject to get the true one-to-one macro. So that's why I like the 60 millimeter. You got a little more working room. If you buy a vintage lens like a 100 millimeter f2.8 for $100, you can work like much further away, and you can work with, and that gives you a lot more options for lighting and things like that. So it depends what kind of macro photography you're talking about. The more working distance you have, the better. I mean, not more than 4 or 5 feet. That might be too much for macro work, but if you can get at least 20 to 30 centimeters as a minimum working distance, all the way out to almost a meter, that would be ideal for macro work in terms of setting up lighting and everything like that. Hey, Jan, I'm sorry. I don't know what you were saying. Sounds amazing. I don't know what you're referring to, but thanks. uh, yeah, come to Malaysia. I'm not going back. Like I said, Malaysia was fine. It was just that travel process of getting on a plane and flying there. I don't ever want to do again. Uh, Good option for macro is the 55-28 lens. Yeah, 50 to $100. That's a good deal. Yeah, I have the Nikon 60 millimeter and 100 millimeter, and well, the 60 millimeter was a little pricey, but that's a legit lens. But the 100 millimeter I bought, I think I paid about 150. How's the M5 II holding? It's holding up fine, Eddie. The M5 Mark II is a fabulous camera. The only thing the newer cameras offer over that are the continuous autofocus is much better, and that's really it. Other than that, the M5 Mark II is a terrific camera. If I can get a good deal on one with the 14 to 150 attached, I might get one. If I can get it combined for about 500, I might do it. um, a great near macro 1-foot focus is the 14. Yeah, the 14 to 42 easy has a pretty good close focusing distance, but yeah, it's definitely near macro. It's not true macro. True macro, I think, really, if you want to draw a line, when is something close, sort of close, how do they? Anyway, macro starts at about 1-to-1, in my opinion. If you want to draw a line, is where is micro photography versus close focusing photography? Do you know anything about Photokina? Any thoughts? Yeah, I'm not going to Photokina. It's in Germany. If it was in New York, I would maybe consider going. Like they have like Robin was telling me it was Photo Plus, but yeah, like I said, for me to go 3-4 days anywhere in the U.S. without plane ticket is $1,000, and if I go to Germany, no, I don't even have a passport. I let it expire years and years ago. I just dislike travel so much. But yeah, long story short, I'm not going. Yeah, I hate flying. Yeah, I don't know, Roman. I know there's some third-party lenses that offer some high magnification, but it's a very specialized application. If you need that much magnification, right? Usually they just they make special dedicated cameras and microscopes to do anything more than 1-to-1, generally speaking. Oh, Johnny, no, nobody's called me to be a visionary. Even if they did, I don't know if maybe I'll take it because the title is kind of nice to have, but I don't know if that would compromise. What's the word I'm looking for? Not compromise. I like to be kind of free of any or independent with respect to camera systems because if I want to go and look at a Fujifilm, like I have this XT30, I don't know. I don't think being a visionary limits you in any way. I guess Robin's a better person to tell you. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I would take it. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. It's just a title. Oh, okay. You're welcome, Cam. Integrity. Any advice for Olympus lens UV filter? The UV filters, you have to be a little bit careful. Generally, they are touted for protecting the lens, right? Because there's no need for a UV filter in digital photography because the digital sensors that we have already have a UV filter on them. So there's no benefit in terms of blocking UV light by getting a UV filter. So you need to look at the UV filter as if you want one, use it as a lens protector. I try to avoid them most of the time, but when you buy a UV filter, don't buy it because it has UV blocking. Buy it because it's going to protect your lens. So it's going to have a very durable glass in it, however they do that. And also make sure, and most of them do, get the thinnest one you can, because if you get the thicker ones, UV filters and you have a very wide angle lens, sometimes you'll get a little vignetting from the UV filter ring. So you need to really get the thinnest UV filter you can in terms of the actual ring for wide angle lenses. And for more telephoto lenses, you want to go for thickness, right? You want to get the strongest one you can. So that's the only advice I can give on that if you want to use the UV filter. I've dropped them in the email. Oh, thanks, John. Yeah, lens hood. Yeah, I prefer lens hoods, but there are lenses that, particularly the super wide angle lenses, that it's very difficult, that the lens hood itself will not protect it. So I have I have a 20 millimeter Nikon lens that I bought a UV filter because the lens hood is so thin, it has no, and that's the only reason I would recommend a UV filter. Let me get my lens. All right, this is my Nikon 20 millimeter f1.8, and this lens hood is too thin to really protect this element. And this is like an $800 lens, right? So the day that I bought this lens, I bought a UV filter for it at the same time. I bought the a Hoya whatever, because the lens element on here is kind of bulbous, and I don't want it to scratch or anything. And these lens hoods just, I hate these kinds of lens hoods that slide on and off like this. But this, if you drop your camera or drop this lens hood will pop right off and hit your lens, right? You could potentially scratch your lens. But because I have a UV filter on here, and this is the only time I buy UV filters, is for something like this. I need to sell this lens because I just don't shoot with my Nikon anymore. But this was an amazing lens. Yeah, you have to buy a quality UV filter, and that's why I spent a good chunk of change on this Hoya filter, because I didn't want any question about the because they'll tell you that they're layered and have nano coating. I mean, they have some. This was an expensive UV filter, so that you don't get that flaring. And then, of course, you can always still have your lens hood on to avoid a lot of that. But so yeah, if you want to buy a UV filter, that's the only advice I can give. Is generally I only use it on the wide angle lenses, and then when I do, I always get a really good one. If it's a good UV filter, you're not going to lose any. I mean, 1% maybe. Honestly, I can't, unless you pixel peep 400% and you have a high quality UV filter, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. Oh, yeah, hey Vivo, most of my vlogs I'm using the kit lens, the 14 to 42 kit lens. And I think the images are fine. I mean, I'm not a particularly good photographer, but quality-wise, you can. Image quality is not an issue with any of the Olympus lenses. They all take fabulous, high-quality images. So don't think that the gear is holding you back. You need to work on your composition or exposure. learning how to do exposure, things like that. So, in my vlogs, I didn't do it as much in the past, but in the vlogs I do going forward, I'm going to talk more about my thought process, about how I take a particular image. Like I just did the one about how I compose. So my future vlogs, I'm going to try and do like that. Oh, hey, Fotis, how are you? Yeah, you're late. Oh my God, I've been on so long. It's been a couple hours now, so I should probably. Oh, thanks, Robin. I get lucky time to time. I'll take a good shot. Um, yeah, kit lenses rule. Thank you, Arthur. That's right. That's right. I started a T-shirt shop on my YouTube channel. I'm gonna use that if you don't mind, Arthur. Kit lenses rule. That's gonna be my next T-shirt. I got a couple of T-shirts I made. One, soup is not food, and one for street photography. I'm just trying to figure out how to use the stupid thing. But yeah, kit lenses rule. That's an awesome T-shirt. Okay, I'm going to go for 2 more minutes this time. So if anybody has any last minute questions, uh, yeah, the pancake kit would be awesome. Pre-order that shirt. I'm going to work on that shirt tonight. It'll be on my site tomorrow. And then you can just order it. And then Arthur, I'm going to email you. And as soon as that shirt is ready, I'm going to send you one for free. Because this was your idea. Kit lenses rule. I like that. How can I pre-order? Yeah, Solar, I haven't. I looked at my Lightroom. It's been over a month since I shot with this XT30, so I might take it out today and put it side by side with either the Pen F or my EM5. I got my bracket set up so I can do the side by side shots, but I need to work out some kind of workflow or what I'm going to take pictures of anyway. It's a nice sunny day today, so I should be able to go out and get some decent shots. And I haven't forgotten about the acros question. You wanted to know how we can get the acros look on our OMD cameras. I haven't forgotten about you on that question, so I will get to that. I am working on an acros profile for our Olympus cameras. Okay, yeah, we're down to the last minute here. Yeah, the kit lens I have on the Fuji. This is the f2.8, the f4.18, the 55. So I got the better one of the two kit lenses available. So I don't know what to compare it against. Another like the normal kit lens on the Olympus or the 2.8 Pro lens. That just doesn't seem fair, but they're equivalent because they cost about the same, right? This lens costs about this Fuji lens costs about the same as that 12 to 40 Pro. So maybe that's a more fair comparison because they are kind of the same price. Oh, hey, yeah, it was you because I vaguely recognized your icon. It was kind of an orangey color. So is it any better today? I'm really trying. um, yeah, how is the video quality now on this image? Because I changed all of the settings that I could find to improve the image quality on the live stream. Because I think it's particularly like I think the green screen has something to do with it. So I made sure there was plenty of light so that green screen's not bleeding through on my face. Oh, thanks, Germ. I can't. I don't have my glasses on. Gerner, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to try and keep improving though because the white balance setup is not quite right. I got two different color lights here and another colored light over here. What I really need is is a rim lighting here on my head. And then I need to get rid of this green screen and set up a decent studio behind me with some colored lights, etc. But yeah, the streaming wise, I'm pretty happy. But thanks, Gern. I appreciate that. Cause yeah, if there's anything wrong with my videos or anything, just let me know. I can try and fix it. And that's why I never mind any comments or feedback I ever get, because all of it is helpful to me, regardless of the tone of the comment. I rarely get comments that are bad, with respect to like malicious, right? But even if they are, it's okay. It's just life is bigger than YouTube, right? But okay. Thanks everyone. I'm gonna call it here and probably go get me a GX85. So I might be calling on Solanto's videos, watching his videos, how to get the best out of Panasonic cameras. And then I'll have I got a bad case of gas. I just, all right. We'll see you guys again next time. Okay, most likely every Sunday. So thanks for coming in, everyone that joined in.